Max Verstappen crossed the line at Zandvoort in 1 minute, 12.094 seconds. That lap left him exactly half a second behind George Russell's pole time. The RB22's pace problem was suddenly exposed for everyone to see. He sat in his garage staring at a P6 classification after sprint qualifying. The timing screens confirmed the deficit, but a deeper question remains unresolved. Nobody knows yet if this gap is a fixable setup anomaly for tomorrow. It could instead be the first crack in a championship defense that looked secure weeks ago. He had already run through the gravel during FP1 fighting both understeer and oversteer. The team made changes before qualifying, yet the car remained stubbornly uncooperative. The tension here extends far beyond one disappointing Saturday afternoon in the Netherlands. Red Bull had taken 3 podiums in the last 4 Grands Prix before arriving here. Now they find themselves classified as merely the 4th best car on the grid. This shift comes during a new technical regulation cycle where competitive order is volatile. Can the team diagnose and cure a balance issue overnight? Their lead driver openly admits he cannot tell you what they will find right now. That uncertainty is the real story beneath the headline deficit. The data shows a machine that improved from free practice but still lacked the final piece. Max Verstappen put it bluntly on Formula 1.com after the session. He said they outqualified one car but found it tricky to locate grip and balance. Those words carry weight when spoken by a driver who has dominated this circuit previously. Grip was absent, balance failed, pace vanished. The race placed Red Bull firmly in the losers column for this specific session. Their analysis assessed the RB22 as only the 4th fastest package in sprint qualifying. This contradicts the strong momentum the team had built coming into this weekend. They were supposed to be setting the benchmark, not fighting for 6th place. The stopwatch told a completely different story about their current performance level. Verstappen needs to understand something fundamental about how this car behaves at its limit. So where does that leave us right now with the evidence available? We have a verified half-second deficit confirmed twice in independent analysis. Lawson qualified 11th and missed SQ3 entirely, adding another layer of complexity. One source frames his struggle as a lack of knowledge of the RB22 package. Engineers have not corroborated that characterization as settled fact. Both cars now operate under severe component constraints that limit aggressive responses. Verstappen and Lawson are already fitted with a 3rd MGU-K at this event. Any further change to chase missing performance will trigger an automatic grid penalty. That specific number, 0.527 seconds, represents a chasm in modern Formula 1 sprint qualifying. George Russell set the benchmark at 1 minute, 11.567 seconds. Verstappen's best effort simply could not bridge that gap despite being on home soil. The Zandvoort crowd expected their hero to challenge for the front row. Instead, they watched him settle for 3rd on the 2nd row of the grid. This is not a minor fluctuation in lap times. It is a measurable performance deficit that demands explanation. Why did the RB22 lose half a second when it should have been competitive? The answer lies buried in telemetry data we cannot yet see. What we can see is the driver's own assessment of the machinery beneath him. Verstappen acknowledged the improvement from earlier practice sessions during his post-qualifying remarks. He stated clearly that it was already a step forward from FP1. That admission confirms the team made progress overnight. Yet he immediately followed that with a sobering reality check. He noted the car was still lacking a little bit to be further up the road. Those words reveal a machine operating below its theoretical ceiling. Progress does not equal competitiveness when rivals find more. The gap to pole remained stubbornly wide even after setup changes. Engineers worked through the night to extract more performance. Their efforts yielded gains, but not enough to threaten the front. Time is short, options narrow, pressure mounts. This qualifying result sits in stark contrast to recent form. Red Bull had secured 3 podiums across the previous 4 Grands Prix entering this weekend. That streak suggested the team had finally unlocked real pace under the 2026 regulations. Zandvoort was supposed to validate that upward trajectory. Instead, it exposed a vulnerability nobody anticipated seeing so soon. The race explicitly categorized this as a disappointing opening day for the championship leaders. Their winners and losers analysis placed Verstappen firmly in the latter category. Being labeled a loser at your home race stings differently. It transforms technical feedback into public scrutiny. Every engineer now feels the weight of expectation multiplied by national pride. Can a half-second deficit truly be solved between sprint qualifying and the main event? Verstappen himself offered no guarantees when asked about confidence levels. He described the situation as hit and miss during his Formula 1.com interview. He added that he cannot tell anyone right now what the team might discover. That honesty strips away any false optimism from the paddock. It signals genuine uncertainty within the garage itself. Drivers rarely admit such doubt unless the problem runs deep. The balance issues persisted despite mechanical adjustments throughout Friday. Grip levels fluctuated unpredictably across different track sectors. Finding consistency became an exercise in frustration rather than precision. So, what have we established so far about this sudden drop in form? We know the RB22 lacks something fundamental that setup tweaks alone cannot fix. We know the driver trusts his feedback but doubts the solution timeline. We also know the competition has moved ahead while Red Bull searches for answers. The regulatory context adds another layer of complexity to this search. Teams are navigating entirely new power unit and aerodynamic rules this season. Competitive order shifts more violently than in previous cycles. A dominant package in one race can become mediocre in the next. Small development missteps carry outsized consequences now. Red Bull's recent podium streak masked underlying volatility in their performance window. Zandvoort pulled back that curtain to reveal the fragility beneath. Verstappen's 6th place is not just a bad qualifying session. It is evidence that the RB22's competitive peak may be narrower than assumed. The team must now determine whether this is a circuit-specific mismatch or a broader trend. That distinction will define their championship trajectory moving forward. Nobody outside Milton Keynes knows which scenario they face tonight. Picture this for a second. You are driving at the absolute limit through Zandvoort's banked corners, trusting that the car beneath you will respond predictably to every input. But instead, the steering wheel feels disconnected from the tarmac as if an invisible hand keeps shifting the fulcrum mid-turn. That is precisely the mechanical disconnect Verstappen experienced throughout Friday and into Saturday morning. He ran wide into the gravel trap during FP1 while battling simultaneous understeer and oversteer. Those two handling flaws should not coexist in a balanced Formula 1 car. Their presence indicates a fundamental platform instability rather than a simple wing adjustment error. The RB22 was fighting itself before it ever fought the clock. Engineers attempted corrections between sessions, yet the core complaint remained unchanged. Verstappen summarized the ordeal succinctly on Formula 1, calm after qualifying ended. He said it was a bit tricky to find the grip and the balance. That phrasing sounds mild until you consider who spoke it. A driver of his caliber does not describe basic mechanical issues as tricky unless they defy standard setup logic. Setup changes yielded marginal returns. Feedback loops stalled. Confidence eroded. The team improved the car from its FP1 state, but improvement is relative when rivals leap forward. Verstappen acknowledged that step forward himself, yet immediately noted the remaining deficit. The phrase, lacking a little bit, carries enormous weight in this context. It suggests the solution exists somewhere just out of reach. Mechanics can adjust ride height, alter suspension geometry, or tweak aerodynamic trim. None of those tools worked decisively enough to erase half a second. The problem persists despite maximum effort from both sides of the pit wall. This is where technical analysis hits a wall of uncertainty. No engineer or team principal has publicly explained the specific mechanical cause beyond the driver's own words. Attributing the deficit to floor stall, suspension compliance, or tire warm-up would be fabrication without corroborating data. We must stay within the boundaries of verified information. What we know is that balance and grip remain elusive variables. What we do not know is whether the root cause is adjustable overnight or structural by design. That distinction matters enormously for Sunday's prospects. Verstappen framed the issue as something needing understanding for tomorrow specifically. His language treats this as a session-specific puzzle rather than a season-ending crisis. Yet puzzles unsolved become crises by default. The race classified Red Bull's opening day as disappointing based on observable results. 6th place at home is objectively below championship-winning standards. The gap to Russell's pole time did not shrink despite track evolution favoring later runners. If anything, competitors extracted more performance as conditions improved while Red Bull plateaued. That trend reverses the expected development curve. Teams typically gain confidence and pace across a weekend, not lose it. So what does this plateau tell us about the RB22's current operating window? It suggests the car may be sensitive to narrow setup parameters that Zandvoort's unique demands have exposed. Banked corners amplify any balance deficiency exponentially. What works elsewhere fails here spectacularly. Verstappen's gravel excursion was not driver error alone. It was mechanical betrayal at high speed. The car demanded inputs it could not honor. Recovering from that requires more than courage. It requires engineering solutions that may not exist in time. Remember how this all started, with Max Verstappen crossing the line exactly half a second behind pole position, exposing a pace problem that looked like an isolated incident. That opening fact now takes on a darker complexion when you examine the other side of the garage. Liam Lawson qualified 11th and missed SQ3 entirely, finishing well outside the top 10 shootout positions. His deficit was not measured in tenths, but in full seconds relative to his teammate. One outlet framed this gap as a direct consequence of his relative lack of knowledge of the RB22 package. That characterization has not been independently corroborated across multiple sources in the available research. It remains a single perspective rather than settled technical fact, yet it raises an uncomfortable possibility about the car itself. If only one driver can extract performance from a chassis, perhaps the machine demands a driving style that cannot be taught quickly. Lawson's struggle compounds the team's headache exponentially. Red Bull now faces setup decisions based primarily on feedback from a single data point. Verstappen's balance complaints may represent the car's true nature or merely his personal preference. Without matching input from Lawson, engineers lose a critical reference for triangulation. Setup becomes guesswork. Development stalls. Championship points bleed. The 2026 regulations reward teams that maximize both cars equally. A package that suits only its lead driver is inherently fragile across a 24-race calendar. Zandvoort exposed that fragility in real time. Lawson's 11th place is not just a rookie learning curve. It is evidence that the RB22's operating window may be narrower than championship contenders can afford. The team must now determine whether to optimize for Verstappen's known preferences or chase a broader setup that might unlock Lawson's potential at the cost of immediate pace. Neither option offers guaranteed returns. Choosing Verstappen's preferred balance risks alienating the second car for the remainder of the season. Chasing compromise settings might dilute the lead driver's confidence without meaningfully improving the teammate's results. This dilemma did not exist during Red Bull's 3-podium streak across the previous 4 races. Back then, both cars appeared competitive within the same performance envelope. Now that envelope has shrunk dramatically. The race assessed the RB22 as merely the 4th best car in this specific session. That ranking applies to the entire team, not just one driver. When both entries fall outside the top tier simultaneously, the problem transcends individual adaptation. It points towards systemic limitations in how the car generates downforce or manages tires under these particular regulatory constraints. Engineers have no public explanation beyond general references to grip and balance. The silence from technical leadership speaks volumes. They are searching for answers that telemetry alone cannot provide.